So this just as a background, when you talk about fair data, which I suppose is what we're talking about here, there are several, I suppose you're familiar with the FAIR principles, and this is a condensed way of putting it, what's it all about. And it's very much focused on metadata, as you know. So when we look at how fair data could be, we recommend our users to use a data repository at an early stage, in particular to create standard metadata that will be more fair. And we provide at Stockholm University at least 4 possibilities of general repositories. Well, I should say the Bolin Center database is for climate data, but the others are more general purpose. And there are several advantages of using a repository, and also you can get help from our RDM team with data curation. And when we curate data, we look at things that we find are part of being fair. For example, file names could be crucial to being findable. And also that file formats are non-proprietary and sustainable, and also more interoperable in this way, and that there is a user license making your data reusable. So, and as you can see, not all of these concern only metadata, but file formats and file names are also concern the actual data files. And there are tools to be better at fulfilling these demands. And another reason why file formats and file names are important is also that we harvest data from these repositories and transform it into archival standard. That is the standard used by the Swedish National Archive, which is called FGS, stands for Common Standard of, I don't know how familiar you are with the OAIS model with 3 types of information packages: submission information packages, archival information packages, and dissemination packages. And what we produce here are submission information packages that could be further transformed and converted into archival information packages. And so what is the role of DMPs here? Well, how could you use DMPs to assess the fairness of data sets? And I want to be specific about this, that we are not trying to make that would be an extra good, of course, if the DMP itself is also fair, and it should be something that we strive to attain too. But here it's more of using the DMP to assess the possible fairness of the data sets that the DMP describes. So this is something that will, in most cases, be something that is performed on beforehand, not in the example case that I will present today, but it's a way of telling the DMP author what she or he should do to attain fairness for the actual data set. And so that is the goal of this. And for this, we have created then this template, which is, I can show it to you first. Perhaps this is a little too small. Is it better like that? It looks like this. So it's mainly lots of, and it has different phases to one initial DMP and one full, which is not yet fully developed. So it contains 9 sections and with mostly there are questions with check boxes. You will see it better when we look at the example that I've created, but it's basically check boxes and multiple options, or in some cases drop down menus, which will help making the output more machine actionable, which is the goal. That is one major tenet of being fair, as you probably know. So as an example, I will use, where is it now? I will use this data set, which is already published then. So this is not the normal case, but I have, so to speak, post factum created a DMP from this data set, which is not mine, but and you will find a link to it in the slides that I will send out afterwards. So this one we have put then. I have made an attempt to that data set to describe it in this DMP with this DMP template. And so let's jump right into it and see what it looks like. So first we have, this is from our legal counsel, that we have to make sure that there are no personal data except for contact information and about PI so that users will have to just click yes to assure that they are aware of this. Then you have this section where you describe the data. As you can see up here are the basic questions from the Science Europe model of DMP and from the Swedish Research Council. But then we're trying to flesh them out and make them more machine actionable then. So basically with check boxes, and you recognize some of the requirements here or possible options from the curation that I pointed to earlier. And there is a question about a possible identifier for the data set. When you do this before having even published it, you may not have a definite DOI, for example, although you can pre-order a DOI even if you have not published it yet in many repositories like Dataverse. and data set identifier. And all these, some of the questions, I should say, quite a number of them, are also in the interest of making this and the output comply with the RDA DMP common standard. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that, but there is a JSON schema to comply with and to validate the output with. So, and then there's the title and the question, if you reuse a data set, and there are also conditional questions here. So if I change this to no, then you see this answer removes 5 questions from your plan. So you don't have to bother with those. And other sections about documentation and data quality, again with checkboxes, and further on metadata standards. And here, since we know if you have answered in the question, in the section before, that you will use a certain repository, we can infer from that which metadata standards you will get. So that is a convenient way. So for example, here the answer was Dataverse, and we know from that both DataCite and DDI are part of the export formats from that repository. So you don't have to fill in everything here. But of course, also there's a question about ontologies or vocabularies, and here they had chosen actually Wikipedia as ontology or for keywords. And to the right here, you see there is guidance how to fill this out and what the different options mean, and so on and so forth. There are questions about storage and backup, what facilities you will use for that, and security measures taken, and a quite heavy section about legal and ethical aspects. Here we got some input help from our legal and ethics team at the Stockholm University. So that's why it's very comprehensive, but you get, again, guidance here. Of course, I am biased, but for me, it takes less than, even though there are initially 41 questions, as you saw here, some might disappear when you have answered, as in the case when I answered no to having reusing data. So, and the same goes if you answer that you have no personal data, there are other questions that disappear. So we won't have time to go through all this, but what happens then is when this is filled out, we use the API to, I mean, you know that DMP Online, which is this service, they have a common roadmap with the DMP tool in California. So it's that is the same API for using that, and then I can just use that API to curl or using another client to get. And now I should change my screen. So what we do, we use the API to get the output from this, and it might look like this. The problem is that this output, this is from the API version 0, which is more comprehensive than the present version. This does not yet, sorry, it's not, it's in JSON, of course. I must move. So this is what it looks like. And so if I try to validate this against the, you remember I talked about this machine actionable DMP schema from RDA for the common standard, I get, it does not validate. So what I have to do is to transform this content. First, since I am an old XML man, I'm used to using XML first. So let's see, there we have it. I first use a tool within Oxygen to convert this to XML, the JSON to XML, and then I have this XSLT style sheet to transform that into a format that will then be more conversant with the RDA DMP common standard. And then as a final step, I will then, let's see where I got that one. The same content in JSON. So I converted back to JSON. And now, let's hope this works now. If I try to validate it, you saw down here and up here that it validates against the RDA DMP common standard. But that's not the most important thing. Or we're talking about fair here. And so what we've added is to get a kind of score for the options taken of that DMP chosen. And we've assigned values, different values, for example, here for using descriptive file names and file names with the allowed data set, they get 1 point for being findable, and they get for using non-proprietary file formats, they get interoperable values for being interoperable, and so on and so forth. It's perhaps easier to see it in the XML before transforming it there. So, and on this, we plan also to build a schema then in Schematron to evaluate it further. So, but as a final thing, we also plan to map these evaluations to this tool. I'm not sure you're familiar with that, but it's a very nice tool that has been developed, I think, at the University of Bremen together with the Fair is Fair. If you can, I've already run it on this data set that we were looking at, but you can run it from scratch by just putting in the DOI and run the test, and it takes less than a minute, and this is the result that you get. So what we plan to do is to map the assigned fair values to these measures. But I recognize that it will be difficult to do in some instances, because as you can see here, there's an M for metadata and D for data. And as you can see, most of the measures here are only for metadata. So, for example, those other measures that we're using currently for when it comes to using sustainable and non-proprietary file formats are not part of this. So I'll stop there. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to ask a question, Joakim. Were you showing the Fuji tool? Because we're seeing your schematron.
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. I must change share again. So this was the one. I'm sorry. I forgot. So this is the Fuji tool. Yes. And so if you remember what I just said, that this is basically, it's a very good tool. I find it very easy to use and very clear in its presentation. But as I said, most of the measures here that I hope you can see them now, are focused on metadata, but not on file metadata. So here is where you put in the DOI and you just click run, and it takes less than a minute. So you can play around with it too. So I'll stop there. Sorry.
Is there a way to directly get this score for a DMP?
Sorry, the score for the DMP?
Yeah. So when you answer a questionnaire, I mean, maybe I misunderstood that. I mean, so when you finish the questionnaire, I mean, did you automatically get a score?
No, not inside the tool. The score, not in this score. I know that the data stewardship wizard has developed something of that kind. So that may be another model to look at. The reason why we are interested in having our own template is that it's directly geared to our Stockholm University user. So I can't guarantee that it would be usable to your community. Obviously, you would have to adapt it to your own community. But the score that I showed here in this oxygen tool is you get only through the transformation inside the oxygen. So then, of course, we would like to have some way of giving feedback to the user so that they can get this score themselves automatically. And one way of that we've imagined doing that would be to have a schematron schema on an online service that they could just put in their DMP and get the results from there. So the idea of their DMP.
That would be particularly useful if we are trying to see what changes would bring in the best results, or where we can kind of prioritize the changes that we need to make.
Yeah. But as I said, you have to be clear that, I mean, this is the score you get here is only valid in case you fulfill everything that you say you should do in the DMP. It's not a guarantee that you'll have to do the work yourself to.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
I have a couple of questions, if you don't mind. So in terms of the practical use right now at Stockholm University, are these DMPs, are they a compulsory part of SU projects, or and like are they now produced written at project time by PIs, or are they, how's the granularity?
actually, it depends on what funder you have. But as you might know, the Swedish Research Council, they have made DMPs compulsory, but they won't look at them, and they leave it to the universities to just store them and certify that there is a DMP, but they have no, and to be honest, we also in the research data management team, we don't have the resources to review all the DMPs. That is part of the reason why we try to develop this tool, for us to automatize the review in case of that will be required. So make the reviewing process faster and easier for us too. So there are several stakeholders here, but we hope that in the end it will be useful to the end users, the researchers too.
Yeah, well,
so as a kind of guidance to what they need to do to be more fair.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's one thing, but also segues into my next question about, so the JSON formatted DMP or XML or something that presumably somehow is accessible to the users or user groups, I presume.
If it's accessible to the users, yeah, as a user you can get no, I'm not sure actually if you have to be an admin to get the access to the API.
Okay.
So because you get a token, the authorization token that you have to put in your in the header of your curl or whatever you're using. And I'm not sure if you get that as an end user, and in that case, I suppose it will only be for getting your own DMPs or those that you are part of.
Yeah. I mean, I can imagine that because there's valuable information, I imagine, in the DMPs that could be ingested into any kind of metadata capture within the actual project if that API is available, or the JSON or something is available to.
But you can get, let's see if I could share it again. As an end user now, you can get let's say you can share it with others, and you can download your DMP. And a new feature is that you can actually download the JSON as JSON too. But then what you get then is quite restricted. It's not the rich content that I just showed you of from our DMP template, but only the part that is there to comply with the RDA DMP common standard. So if I share this again, where is it? So this is what you get then. And if you try, so none of the rich content with fair evaluation is in this. And furthermore, if you try to validate it, it actually, although it's made explicitly for validating, they have missed to put the date format right here. So you have to fix it like this to make it validate. Let's see now. I made a mistake there. Yeah. And then now it should validate. Yeah. So and for our purposes, we prefer to have this richer content